That was back in January here in Texas. What a change from what we have now. Let's take a look around the world. We do have some heat going on elsewhere, such as in Europe. The Balkans, the Eastern Mediterranean, getting some heat there. We had records for the day set in places like Trieste, Italy, and Budapest, Hungary. Elsewhere in the Balkans, Mostar in Bosnia got up to 106 today. It was 97 at Belgrade, 93 at Athens, and 90 at Tel Aviv. There's also some cold weather. That's going to be up in eastern Canada. Some lows below freezing around James Bay. Brazil getting a little bit of cool weather with it being winter down there. And Minnesota there checking in with 34. Returning closer to home here in the U.S., we've got a weak frontal system in the Buffalo area with a cold front extending southwest through Ohio into Indiana and towards St. Louis. South of there, some very humid tropical air. That's helped to support Tropical Storm Elsa, which is in northern North Carolina crossing over into Virginia. That still has winds 45 knots and a pressure of 1006 millibars. And that's continuing to move to the northeast at about 20 miles an hour. There still continues to be a retreat of the monsoon moisture. 50-degree dew point there at Phoenix, 52 at Nogales, but still hanging on to 63 at Blythe. However, the heat is cranking up across Nevada and Utah. You can see we've got 96 to 104 in some of those areas. We are close to the record for the date at Bishop, at Ely, and a couple other stations in this area right here. That heat is going to start edging southward into Arizona into Saturday and then settle across Southern California early next week. And we'll see more of those 112-degree temperatures starting to take hold around places like Bakersfield and Thermal. Checking in on Canada, their weather has certainly been bound up with weather here in the lower 48. Very large high-pressure area across Quebec and Ontario. That's what brought those record lows to Moosonee right there. They've come up to 66, very nice warm-up. However, some warm weather beginning to set up once again in the Canadian prairies. We're up to 90 degrees there at Stony Rapids, way up in northern Saskatchewan, and widespread 80s and 90s throughout Alberta and Saskatchewan. And even up north in the Canadian Arctic, we're starting to see some 40s and 50s up there, way up north. That's not too unusual, but it does show some of that warm air starting to filter up into the Arctic regions. The graphics from the National Hurricane Center shows Tropical Storm Elsa moving up into Virginia, and we're starting to see the development of a tropical depression in South Texas. The forecast graphics for Elsa shows that it's being picked up by the prevailing westerlies. By tomorrow morning, it should be off the coast of New Jersey, and then by afternoon, moving up off the coast of Maine. So the impacts will be mostly around Boston, Hartford, Block Island, Cape Cod, out in that region right there for tomorrow. The hemispheric mid-level chart shows that the polar vortex is quite deep across the polar regions. Normally the flow up there becomes a little bit light and variable towards summer. However, we've got a couple very deep vortices in that region. And around that, very strong jet ringing that polar vortex. And further south, we've got a couple of cutoff features. Cutoff low there in, looks like France and Germany, and another one across the Caspian Sea. And this omega block right here, that's responsible for a lot of the heat in the Balkans up to Ukraine, Belarus, and Lithuania, where they're getting some very hot temperatures. And in the western U.S., we've got a high-pressure area of our own. This is not really a cutoff high. This is more of a subtropical high. Very well developed there, 594 decameters, and a split flow pattern with this jet coming out over Oregon into the Illinois, Indiana, Midwest area, and then out towards the Canadian Maritimes. And then just a look ahead to see what the flow does. That high definitely continues building in the western U.S. up to 597 across Arizona for Saturday and Sunday. And then you can see it kind of backing a little bit into the Southern California deserts. Very impressive vortex right there in northern Canada, supporting a very strong polar jet across the Northwest Territories down into Quebec. And it looks like that cutoff high that's over Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and so forth, looks like it starts opening up and moving a little bit eastward, so that should bring a little bit of relief to parts of Southeast Europe. And then moving forward, not much change for the U.S. Still continued kind of a split flow pattern there. One very strong jet up there in the Arctic and another band across the northern states. And it looks like the pattern remains fairly stagnant for the next week or two. In fact, this is not a good development. Look at that. That's a 600 decameter line. We better take a closer look at that. Now, granted, that was around 300 to 330 hours. That was very far in the future, but it's very rare to see that on the forecast graphics, so that does have me a little bit concerned. Now, I wouldn't worry about that too much, really, because you can see that's a long ways out. But there it is, the 21st through 22nd, showing a very rare 600 decameter contour. That's over Nevada, and then it kind of moves up into Oregon. Again, don't read too much into this. This is pretty far out, but we have another week or two to keep tabs on that. Just to show you the theoretical impacts in the worldview of this model, this is around the 20th, and you can see 110s popping up in the San Joaquin Valley, hundreds in the Snake River Valley. A little bit warmer on the next day, and after that, we're back up into the 110s in the Pasco, Kennewick, Yakima area. And 113 there at Sacramento. Now, these models do not do very well with temperature this far out, but you can think of this as kind of an experiment. If we can remember this forecast, we'll go back and look at it and see how it verified around the 20th to 25th. And returning from La La Land to the realities of today's weather, there's Tropical Storm Elsa making its move into Virginia. You can see a pretty well-defined dry slot moving into North Carolina there. So that is going to shut down the convection in that region. There may be a little bit of wind trailing that system, but the main rains are up in Virginia, and that will shift towards Delaware and New Jersey this evening. And there's how it looks on the radar mosaic, a very large convective band. Extensive precipitation shield moving up into Virginia, so a very rainy day up there in Norfolk and Richmond. And it looks like most of the southeastern half of Virginia should be seeing the rain ramp up this evening. We've had some storms move through the New York City area this afternoon in association with that warm front. That's it right there, New York City. And there's more cells back towards the southwest. A convective system moving in from the, looks like the Harrisburg area. The surface map doesn't show any obvious boundaries in that region, so that's probably associated somewhat with the increase in warm air advection and moisture ahead of Tropical Storm Elsa. And the environment out there is probably just very unstable. The satellite loop shows most of the convection retreating to the higher terrain of the Rockies, right there. The very hot temperatures in Nevada and Utah supporting some high-based showers, but very little of it is organizing. In South Texas, we can see that developing tropical disturbance right there near Corpus Christi, so it's going to be unsettled along the Texas coast at least for a few days. And in the central U.S., it looks like that frontal boundary may be extending all the way into Oklahoma. You can see a lot of dry air spreading southward, so I probably needed to bring that boundary a little bit further south on that surface analysis. Things improving a little bit in the wake of Elsa. You can see a very powerful low-level circulation right there. However, with lots of moisture off towards the west, that dry slot is really not bringing in too much improvement. It's just bringing moisture back into the backside of that system, and as a result, we're getting the usual convection firing up in Georgia and South Carolina. In the northeastern states, we're dealing with the front itself. Remember, that's located somewhat like that. So we've got a baroclinic cloud shield across that region. That's going to be this mess right here. And then we've got Elsa coming up from the south. A little bit of reverse lake effect across Lake Superior and Lake Michigan there. Very cool air moving across the lake surface and then heating up over the land and forming cloud elements across Wisconsin. And that process is stronger across Michigan, so they're seeing a lot of cloud in that region. Not much to show in the Central Plains. However, the tail end of that Great Lakes system runs about like that. So we've got some thunderstorms across northern Montana and southern Saskatchewan. They're moving pretty much west to east. And that's a closer look at those storms right there. They are kind of outflowish. However, some of the stronger towers appear to be moving towards the Montana-North Dakota state line. That's them right there. And SPC does have an enhanced risk out for the western part of North Dakota. And for the northwestern U.S., I think the main thing to point out is the wildfires. The Dixie Fire, that's it right there. We talked about that 2 days ago. And now we have more fires. Looks like northwest of Klamath Falls. Looks like northeast of Klamath Falls. I got that confused with Lakeview. That's it right there. And it looks like we have another fire near Steamboat, Oregon right there. That's Crater Lake. And that's what the lay of the land looks like right there. And that's all for this edition of Forecast Lab. I want to thank our new supporter, Aaron. Welcome and thank you for your contribution. And we'll be back tomorrow for the Friday edition. Take care and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.